Do you smell that? It's a Week 4 NFL review, motherfuckers! Cincinnati versus Jacksonville. Oh, Jacksonville, you were so close to snapping your 18-game losing streak. You had a 14-0 lead and the ball on Cincinnati's 1-yard line late in the first half. Of course, instead of kicking a field goal to go up 17-0 or score another touchdown to go up by 20, you went for it and got 0 points. Congrats. On the positive side, no offense to Magic Johnson, Trevor Lawrence had his best game as a pro, which isn't exactly a high bar to clear, but he still made some really nice throws that showed why he's so highly touted. Unfortunately for Trevor, his defense made Joe Burrow and his noodle arm look like prime Joe Montana in the second half. Cincinnati ended up scoring 3 touchdowns and a field goal on their 4 second half drives, including a game-winning 35-yard field goal as time expired to win the game 24-21. The real story is how much longer will man of faith Urban Meyer last as Jacksonville head coach after he was caught on video getting a shitty lap dance and sticking his fingers up the rear of a young woman at a bar this weekend. Perhaps she just had an itchy back and Urban was being a good Samaritan and scratched it for her. Yeah, let's go with that. Chicago versus Detroit. Fresh off of a nightmare first career start versus Cleveland, Justin Fields got an absolute godsend this week. The Detroit Lions defense. Fields' final stat line isn't much home to write about, but he made some really beautiful throws and for the most part was asked to just stay out of the way while David Montgomery and Damian Williams chewed up yards on the ground. Oh, and also to just let the Lions do lion shit to take themselves out of the game. For example, Detroit had 4 drives where they got the ball inside the Chicago 8-yard line and came away with 0 points. Twice turning it over on downs and twice fumbling the ball away. Detroit never had the ball in the second half within 1 score and added a few hollow touchdowns in the last 20 minutes to make the final score seem respectable at 24-14. It takes an incredible amount of incompetence to make Chicago look like a good franchise, but Detroit somehow does it. 1 playoff win since 1958. Tough scene. Indianapolis versus Miami. By far one of the most boring and forgettable games of the weekend for anybody who isn't a Colts fan. Miami took a 3-0 lead into the second quarter before Indianapolis ripped off 20 straight points to take a 20-3 lead early in the fourth. From that point on, Indy sandwiched a Wentz touchdown pass to Mo Alley Cox, whose name translates to what my wife and I did after our high school prom, in between 2 Miami garbage time touchdowns to bring us to the 27-17 final score. Wentz and Brissett both averaged under 10 yards per completion, just brutally disgusting football from 2 teams who won't matter at the end of the season. I can tell you this, neither Indianapolis or Miami's QB of the future is currently on their roster. Props to Carson Wentz, though, for successfully going all game without breaking every bone in his body from stepping on a sunflower seed. The New York Jets versus Tennessee. Tennessee, what the fuck are you doing? You let a team that came into this game averaging 6.7 points per game beat you. Yes, I know you were without Julio and AJ Brown, but seriously? As if having to live in the state of Tennessee wasn't bad enough, your fans now have to endure a loss like this on top of it. Tennessee fell behind 10-9 entering the fourth quarter when their offense finally got going with a Derrick Henry touchdown run and 2-point conversion to take a 17-10 lead. Phew! Crisis avoided, right? Wrong. Tennessee's defense then allowed Zach Wilson to throw 2 touchdowns in the span of 3 minutes to take a 24-17 lead. Tennessee then teased their fans even more by scoring a game-tying touchdown with 16 seconds left to send the game into overtime, where their defense allowed New York to kick a go-ahead field goal to make it 27-24. Tennessee then drove the ball inside New York's 30-yard line before they decided to settle for a 49-yard field goal, but their kicker Randy Bullock missed it. Cowards who play for ties deserve to lose. Buffalo versus Houston. We all knew Houston would be bad coming into this season, and yet after they beat a shitty Jacksonville team in week 1 and played Cleveland competitively in week 2, we all thought to ourselves, hey, maybe they won't be as bad as we predicted. Well, folks, I'm afraid to say that Houston is, in fact, just as bad as we predicted. This game actually began looking like Houston would take an early lead after a Josh Allen interception set them up at Buffalo's 13-yard line. But Houston turned the ball over on downs and never got anywhere close to scoring again. Not including kneel downs, Houston had 11 drives in this game and scored 0 points, which should be impossible in today's NFL. Draft-neck rookie quarterback Davis Mills had 87 yards passing and 4 interceptions for a 23.6 rating. He also took 3 sacks for good measure. Buffalo could have brought Nathan Peterman back to start in place of Josh Allen, and they still would have won. After all, they needed just 2 points. but they ended up scoring 40 for good measure. Future Hall of Fame quarterback Mitch Trubisky got some action late in the game to finish off the scoring with a 3-yard touchdown run. Buffalo already has 2 wins by 35 plus points this year, and even though they came against Miami and Houston, that's still impressive. I doubt they'll do it to KC next week though. Cleveland versus Minnesota. You knew he was going to pop up eventually, just as you began to trust him. Of course, I'm talking about bad Kirk Cousins, who reared his ugly head in this extremely winnable game against a Cleveland offense that looked uncomfortable and discombobulated all game long. It started well enough for Minnesota, as their first drive was a 75-yard touchdown drive. However, they would score 0 points on their remaining 10 drives of the game. There's a part of me that just can't help but feel a little bit bad for Kirk Cousins, as in reality, Minnesota should be 3-1 right now thanks to him, but instead they're 1-3 and everybody is focusing on his one poor performance. To me, however, the more interesting story from this game is how Cleveland's offense has gone to shit, pun intended, once Odell Beckham Jr. returned. Cleveland is 2-0 since Odell's return, but that's been due to their defense. Offensively, Baker's reverted back to his bad habits. It's not all Odell's fault, as Baker missed him on some throws, but without Odell, the Cleveland offense seems to play more freely and Baker doesn't feel pressure to force throws to him. Here's the cold hard truth. Odell is a superstar name despite the fact that he hasn't had a great season since 2016. At this point, I think Odell is more trouble than he's worth, and Cleveland would be better off trading him. New York Giants versus New Orleans. Daniel Jones had one of his best games ever, throwing for over 400 yards. Remember John Ross, the wide receiver Cincinnati picked ahead of Mahomes in 2017 and still hasn't reached 900 yards in his career? Well, he made a great catch early to give New York a 7-0 lead. Emperor Crablegs responded with a touchdown pass to even the score at 7 at halftime. New Orleans' favorite Mormon, Taysom Hill, then ran for 2 touchdowns to give the Saints a 21-10 lead with 12 minutes left. New York appeared dead, no offense to Urban Meyer's marriage, but then Jones found Saquon Barkley for a 54-yard touchdown pass before adding a 2-point conversion to make it 21-18. New York then sent the game to overtime on a 48-yard field goal with 36 seconds left. In overtime, Daniel Jones, who looks uncomfortably similar to Norman Bates, led a crisp game-winning touchdown drive capped off by a 6-yard Saquon touchdown run. I honestly don't know if this is an impressive win for New York, since I don't know if New Orleans is good or not. They've had 2 great games and 2 shit games. I didn't expect their offense to be so boring with Jameis, but leave it up to Sean Payton to surprise everybody. I am happy to see Saquon doing well again, but I still can't forgive him for having premarital sex. Kansas City versus Philadelphia. Am I happy my Eagles lost? Of course not. Am I surprised my Eagles lost? Fuck no. Patrick Mahomes was not going to lose 3 straight games, even if his defense was awful, which it was once again, giving up over 460 yards and 30 points. Credit to my team though, they hung in, no offense to Aaron Hernandez, for 3 quarters before KC blew the game open late in the 4th. Mahomes ended up throwing 5 touchdowns, 3 of which went to first-team all-woman respecter Tyreek Hill. It just feels like the only 2 things that can stop KC's offense from dominating is themselves by turning the ball over and Brady's luck, trademark. If they don't fumble or throw a pick, you're almost certainly fucked. I still have no idea what to make of Jalen Hurts, especially now that there are rumors Philly is interested in trading for Deshaun Weinstein. Although I want to win games and Watson is one of the best quarterbacks in the league, I don't want him anywhere near my team. God, I'm such a fucking class act. I have no idea how I survive with so much class. If you're watching this, please clap. Thank you. Dallas versus Carolina. Perhaps people should have waited for Carolina to play against the real NFL offense before anointing their defense as the second coming of the 85 Bears, as Dallas carved them up, no offense to O.J. Simpson, to the tune of 36 points and 433 yards. Even Zeke Elliott's fat ass looked great, putting up 143 rushing yards and a touchdown. The final score was 36-28, but this game was never that close, as Carolina added 2 Darnold touchdown passes in garbage time after Dallas took a 36-14 fourth quarter lead. Speaking of Sam Darnold, he had 2 more rushing touchdowns in this game, and there's no question his touchdown runs are the hardest working and grittiest touchdown runs I've ever seen from a Carolina quarterback. In fact, I would love for his touchdown runs to date my daughter. Washington versus Atlanta. It took a little longer than expected this season, but Atlanta finally wasted a great Matt Ryan performance with horrendous defense. Ryan threw 4 touchdowns and no interceptions. Atlanta scored 30 points, but unfortunately for them, their opponent scored 34. Atlanta's porous D made Taylor Heineke look like an MVP, going for 290 yards and 3 touchdowns. Heineke isn't a scrub, but it's not a coincidence that every quarterback seems to have their career-defining moment against the Falcons' defense. But don't fear, it wasn't just Atlanta's defense that sucked ass in this game. They even gave up a 101-yard kickoff return touchdown to start the second half as well. Hooray for special teams. Ryan threw a touchdown pass to give Atlanta an 8-point lead in the 4th quarter, but you're not going to believe this. Atlanta's defense blew a lead, letting Heineke throw 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns, including the game winner with 33 seconds left to go up by 4. This is the 4th time in the last 3 seasons where Matt Ryan has lost a game where he threw 4 touchdowns and no picks and his team scored 30 or more points. Is Ryan perfect? perfect? Absolutely not. But he's another quarterback who won't be remembered as fondly as he should be when he's done playing. Arizona versus the LA Rams. Thank goodness the Matthew Stafford hype can die down a little bit after his Rams got violated by Kyler Murray in Arizona 37-20. Kyler is currently making a great case as the early MVP leader as he's finally starting to play more aggressive, which has led to Arizona's offense taking off. LA had a 10-7 lead after the first quarter, but from that point on it was all Arizona, who went on a 30-3 run to take a 37-13 lead with 4 minutes left in the game before Stat Padford threw a garbage time touchdown to end the scoring. This was a massively impressive win by Arizona, and although it remains to be seen if Kyler can keep up the torrid pace he's on early, I believe he can, considering how much talent at the skill positions Arizona has. The only fear for me is Ryan Gosling impersonator Cliff Kingsbury fucking it up with his play calling. As for LA fans, this game showed why you should always be hesitant to gas up Stafford. His arm talent has never been in doubt, but he has too many games like this where his accuracy just isn't there. I still expect LA to be in the mix for the 1 seed, but I just don't trust Stafford to play excellent for 3 or 4 games come playoff time. Seattle versus San Francisco. I'm literally shitting and crying as I say this, but Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt again. His handsomeness is so extreme it's literally too much for his body to handle, which leads to him breaking down easily. Even without Garoppolo, I felt confident in Seattle's chances in this game due to the fact that recovery water endorser Russell Wilson has only lost 3 games in a row twice in his career. Sure enough, Wilson stepped up and played great, throwing for 2 touchdowns and running for another to lead Seattle on a 21-0 run to take a 21-7 lead in the third quarter. Highly touted San Francisco rookie quarterback Trey Lance got his first extensive NFL action, and on his first drive, Brady found a wide-open Deebo Samuel for a 76-yard touchdown. Wait, did I say Brady? Ha, I meant Lance. Silly me, how did that happen? Anyway, Seattle responded with a touchdown to go back up 28-13, and the game was basically over from that point on. San Fran added the touchdown and 2-point conversion with 1:20 left to make it 28-21, but the onside kick failed and Seattle won. Baltimore versus Denver. What an utterly forgettable game this was. Teddy Two Gloves got a concussion and was replaced by white rapper Drew Lock, who, you won't believe this, sucked really hard. Denver took an early 7-0 lead, but Baltimore scored the remaining 23 points to win 23-7. Lamar Jackson threw for over 300 yards and had a nice 49-yard touchdown pass to Marquise Brown, but he only rushed for 28 yards and didn't have any real memorable plays. Denver fans are about to feel the karma for willingly living in a state that promotes marijuana. It's time to come back to the real world now, boys and girls. Your 3-0 start was a mirage. Ever since 2016, Denver has been the worst kind of team. They suck, and they also suck to watch. If Teddy's going to miss some time, then Denver desperately needs John Elway and his disgusting horse mouth to loosen up the old arm and come out of retirement. Sure, he's 61 years old, but he's still alive and breathing, so what's the holdup? Don't tell me you wouldn't watch that shit. Green Bay versus Pittsburgh. Everybody who says mean things about Ben Roethlisberger is just super jealous of his rugged good looks and ability to make any woman within a 100-mile radius of him feel comfortable. Ben once again struggled mightily in this game, although it looked as though he might turn back the clock on a beautiful 45-yard touchdown throw to start the game. After that, though, not much to brag about. In all honesty, neither team should end up feeling super great about this game. Green Bay won 27-17, but it should have been by a lot more, as Aaron Rodgers was inconsistent with his accuracy all game long, and Aaron Jones fumbled away a key drive late in the third quarter as Green Bay was driving to go up by 20 or more points. Green Bay's offense still isn't operating at the same nuclear level it did last season, although they'll gladly take being 3-1 after that disastrous opening week loss to New Orleans. Green Bay appears to have found a player in Eric Stokes, which just makes Kevin King's presence on their roster even more puzzling. He should be working at Costco, no offense. Tampa Bay versus New England. You won't believe this, but Tom Brady played like complete dog shit and still won the game. We should have known Brady would play like shit the moment the real GOAT, Rob Gronkowski, was ruled out with an injury, which he suffered because Brady threw a shitty pass, by the way. Ever since Gronk entered the league in 2010, Brady has put up historically great numbers when he has him and Andy Dalton type numbers when he doesn't. New England didn't take nearly enough advantage of Tampa Bay's putrid first half offensively, and it ended up biting them in the end. New England's offense finally woke up late in the third quarter and fourth quarter and took leads of 14-13 and 17-16, but not even Belichick is a match for Brady's luck. Tampa Bay's game-winning drive was just 45 yards overall, and 31 of those 45 yards came on a defensive pass interference, of course. That's what true greatness is all about. In a stunning tribute to Adam Vinatieri, Brady let his kicker make a clutch Welch 48-yard field goal to give him the lead 19-17 with about 2 minutes left. New England's offense then marched to Tampa's 44-yard line with a minute 11 left with a fresh set of downs. Of course, by this point, Brady willed the weather to start raining. New England's offense only needed about 10 to 15 more yards to milk the clock and set up a makeable game-winning field goal as time expired, but instead they faced a 4th and 3. Belichick decided to kick a 56-yard field goal in the pouring rain with Nick Folk. Folk had made like 35 straight field goals, but of course he barely missed this very difficult field goal, which sealed the win for Tampa Bay. They honestly should just rename the sport from football to Brady wins. Because when Tom Brady is involved, it doesn't matter how bad he plays, his team always wins, and everybody is worse off for it, since afterwards, we have to listen to him get all the credit as if we didn't just sit on our asses and watch him play like Dwayne Haskins for 3 hours. He's the most overrated player in sports history, and I will not stop exposing him until he retires. Los Angeles Chargers versus Las Vegas. This game took place in an indoor stadium, yet was somehow delayed due to lightning. Thanks, Obama. LA jumped out to a 7-0 lead on their opening drive before the scoring stalled out for a bit, just like my sex life. LA then tacked on 2 more touchdowns to take a 21-0 lead into halftime. Las Vegas didn't quit though, as Derek Carr led 2 touchdown drives to cut the score to 21-14. After an LA punt early in the 4th, Las Vegas got the ball back with a chance to tie, then Derek Carr threw a 51-yard bomb to get into LA territory. It looked as though the Chargers were going to charger away another game, but the defense stood strong and Las Vegas' drive ended with a missed field goal. Justin Herbert then calmly converted a 4th down before Austin Eckler scored on a touchdown run to make it 28-14. Carr would throw an interception on Las Vegas' next drive to essentially end the game. Once again, just as the Raiders are on the verge of relevance, they completely shit down their leg. They're about as trustworthy as Bobby Petrino.